afternoon. You are welcome to our Distant Learning English webinar for students of the 10th form. I am happy to invite you for another class of English for all who want to learn English grammar. I hope you are fine and you are ready to start. Before we start, let's revise a little bit what we have already learned. We started the topic of conversation, phone conversation, conversation on the internet, and so on and so forth. And on the first lesson we discussed some lexical units. The previous time we discussed how we report the conversation which took place sometime before or earlier, and we discussed the reported speech statements. I invite you to recall a little bit what we have already learned. In terms of the statements, so the conversation takes place in real time. We have direct speech, we have direct address to each other, but when we report, there occur certain changes. So let's revise what changes are there. We have mentioned that when we report speech statements, there are some lexical changes because the whole situation changes. The speakers change, the participants change, the whole situation changes, and therefore there must be lexical changes. So the first group of changes is the lexical changes. And we learned that these lexical changes include possessive pronouns, possessive pronouns, personal pronouns, then demonstrative pronouns, adverbials of time, and place. So these words change when we report direct speech in the statements. We also mentioned that some parts of speech do not change. What are they? They are nouns, adjectives, and verbs. As for verbs, we discuss here verbs in terms of their meaning. The meaning of the verb doesn't change, but not the form. The form, as we will remind later, can change. So these lexical changes. Some parts of speech change, the other parts of speech don't change. And we have clarified, so these changes happen always. Now, the first group of changes is lexical. Lexical changes, and they happen always. Then we discussed that there are occasions, there are situations when we report the past conversation. That is why the time reference changes as well. So correspondingly we have to make some other group of changes, and we call it grammar changes. So the second group of changes is grammar changes. Grammar changes. So let's have a look. We clarify that these changes occur only if the reporting verb is used in the past tense. So for example, somebody told or someone said, in this very case we should change the tense forms of the verbs, and this is the part where verbs change. The forms of the verb change, but not their meaning. Форма дієслова змінюється, але не їхнє значення. And this change implies the one tense back change. На один час назад. So if we have present tenses, they change into the past tenses. If we have past tenses, we change them into past perfect tenses, both past perfect simple or past perfect continuous. Correspondingly, we use past forms of modal verbs like could instead of can, might instead of may, had to instead of must. And the auxiliary verb for future will changes into would. Just like with the previous group of changes, lexical changes, some parts do not change. And these parts that we discussed the previous time are the past perfect and the past forms of modal verbs. That could remains the same, would and might. So these are the grammar changes, and we should clarify and point out that they occur only if the reporting verb is in the past, while lexical changes happen always. So these are the changes which should be undertaken when we report direct speech statements. These changes occur only with statements. Now let's train a bit. Let us take a simple sentence, a statement, like Mark says, "I'll top up my phone this evening." From the very first seminar, from the very first lesson when we introduced the vocabulary, you know that top up my phone is a collocation which is used to denote поповнити рахунок або поповнити телефон. Just a simple statement. I'll top up my phone this evening. So what tense is used here? It's will, so it's future simple. Let's try to report this statement in the present. So as for the present reporting verb, we use says, because there is no addressee. We don't know to whom Mark said that. So that is why we use says. Mark says, then, according to the rule that we have already mentioned, I should be changed as a personal pronoun, should be changed into he, because Mark tells about himself, and we report about him. That is why I changes into he. Then, as the reporting verb is in the present, says, that's present simple, there are no grammar changes. So, future simple remains future simple, no changes. So, will top up. Then, in the direct speech sentence, we have my, that's possessive pronoun. Possessive pronoun my should be changed into his. Then the noun phone and evening, also noun evening, are nouns and they don't change, so they remain the same. His phone this evening. You may ask, the demonstrative pronoun this, according to the rule, it should be substituted into that. It should be changed into that. Why don't we change it here in this sentence? Because the time reference is the same. When Mark says this sentence, I'll top up my phone this evening, so this evening for him is the future. When we report this sentence in the present, Mark says it is also the present. In this sentence, this evening is also future. So there is no change in the time. There is no time reference change. That is why this evening remains like this. Now let's try to report this statement in the past. In the past we use said. Mark said. Again, lexical changes remain the same. He, and according to the rule, will should be changed into would. And here the grammar change would, top up, should be applied. And the rest remains according to the previous situation. His phone, and here in this sentence, as the time reference changed, because for Mark, when he spoke about it, that was future, and for us, when we report it, it is already past. That is why here we should change this into that evening. So Mark said he would top up his phone that evening. Він поповнить телефон. Марк сказав, що він поповнить телефон в той вечір. So, what do we have? We have the reporting verbs. Says, present simple, and said, past simple. Depending on the reporting verbs, we have grammar changes. So, as you can see, in the present reporting verb, the grammar change doesn't happen. We have will and will in both cases, and we have would if the reporting verb is in the past. And we have the change in the adverbial of time, because this and this in the direct and present reported speech is the same, and that is in the past reported speech. As for lexical changes, you can see that in both cases they coincide. We have he and he, his and his. So that's the statements. That's how we report statements. If you remember the previous webinar, we finished at one crucial point and there was one item left, one reporting verb left. We didn't cover the reporting verb ask. As you know, the reporting verb ask is used to report questions. So today we are discussing how to report questions in English. It's quite an easy task, therefore although it should be mentioned that there are some peculiar features. So, as for questions, I invite you to start with the definition, what is a question? So a question is a special type of sentence. It differs from the statement that we have already discussed. What is the common rule in English for statements? The most common rule is that all the statements should be given with the direct word order. What does it mean, direct word order? Прямий порядок слів. It means that the subject, підмет, goes before the predicate. Ставиться перед присудком. So we've got subject and predicate. And this is the statement. This is the statement. Це розповідне речення, підмет, присудок. Is the direct word order. In Ukrainian we may use whatever word order we like. Дивлюся я онлайн-урок з англійської мови і розумію я все. So it's indirect. Присудок стоїть перед підметом. Я дивлюся і я розумію. Те ж саме, тільки прямий порядок слів. Direct word order. Has the sense changed? No. Значення, сенс речення не змінюється. In English we should use only the direct word order. Subject, I am watching and I understand. That's the word order of the statement. How do we form questions? How do we form questions? Of course, in questions, just like in statements, there is subject and predicate. But what else? Before the subject, there must be an auxiliary verb. Auxiliary verb, допоміжне дієслово. It depends on the tense form that is required for this sentence. Залежить від часової форми. You may use do, does for present simple. You may use did for past simple. You may use have, has for present perfect, and so on and so forth. So the auxiliary depends on the tense form of the whole sentence. Допоміжне дієслово залежить від часу потрібного у реченні. And it is always used before noun. And it is a part of a predicate. І це частина присудка. So, in questions we have indirect word order. Непрямий порядок слів, коли присудок ставиться перед підметом. And this is the difference between statements and questions. So it's the word order of the general question, or yes-no question. Загальне питання, так? What about special questions? So special questions are given to specific information. So everything is the same as it is the question. The word order is the same. The word order is the same. The only thing that we add a question word. Питальне слово. Питальне слово, usually we mark it with WH because it starts with WH, what, when, where, whose, and so on. So the question word stands before auxiliary, but after that we have the same word order of the question. Auxiliary verb, subject, and predicate, as you can see. So that's the word order of the question. And this is the word order of direct question. When we report anything, either a statement or a question, we change the sentence into a complex, ми змінюємо речення на складне, and we change it into a statement. І це буде розповідне речення. Так? Котра година? Він запитав, котра година. It's already not a question, it is already not a question, but a statement. And what do we have in the statement? In the statement we have the direct word order. So logically, what should be changed if we report question? Right, that's the word order, порядок слів. Порядок слів змінюється при передачі прямої мови питань у непряму. Does it always happen? Of course it does. Завжди відбувається зміна порядку слів у реченні. So we make a statement out of a question. Now let's have a seat. Let's look how it happens in practice. So let's take a simple special question first. We start with a special question. What is Lily's phone number, Kim? It's a quite easy question because we don't have possessive or personal pronouns. So as you can see, there cannot be any lexical changes. Yes? And we have an addressee, Kim. We have a person to whom this question is given. So we report this question like this. David asks Kim because we know whom he is asking. So David asks him. Then, if it is a complex sentence, we should use a conjunction. Conjunction – сполучник. У складному реченні необхідний сполучник. And the question word what becomes a conjunction. Питальне слово автоматично стає сполучником і автоматично переноситься у непряму мову. So David asks Kim. Then we have no lexical changes, and as asks is present simple, we have no grammar changes. So the only change should be word order. And this is like that. So what Lily's phone number is the direct word order, the word order of a statement. Now let's report this question in the past. Here we use David asked Kim. What remains as a conjunction? Lily's phone number as a subject, no changes because we don't have here lexical changes. And only grammar change is was. Is changes into was. Present simple changes into past simple. So as you can see, all those lexical and grammar changes which are characteristic of the statement are used here in questions as well. The only added item is the word order change. But this is the special question. Let's take a general question, whereas there is no question word. So this question is a little bit more difficult because here we have personal pronouns and some adverbials. So the question, did your sister call you yesterday? The difference is that we have no addressee. We have no person to whom this question is given. So that is why we report it as Mom asks. Here we should use a conjunction. We need a conjunction. Нам потрібен сполучник, but we don't have it. У нас його немає. We should introduce it. And in this case, we introduce the conjunction if or whether. So it's or. It means that you may use either if or whether. Both are the same. You may use either of them without change of meaning. So Mom asks if. Then we undertake all those lexical changes. My sister, because let's presume that she asked that me. My sister, not your my sister. Present simple reporting verb call asks requires no grammar changes. So past simple did call is past simple, remains past simple. Here I should emphasize that in case of present simple or past simple questions, care should be taken because in questions we have auxiliary verbs, do, does, did, but in statements they are absent. So you should take care not to use auxiliary did, do, does in the statement, but make the past simple or present simple correctly. So my sister, past simple would be called me, you changes into me, and yesterday, just like in the previous sentence, yesterday doesn't change because the time reference doesn't change. Let's report it in the past. So we have if weather introduced, my sister called, subject and predicate. Let's try to report this question in the past. My mom asked what? If or whether, my sister, and here according to the rule of grammar changes, past simple should be changed into past perfect. Had called me the day before. Yesterday changes into the day before. Again, so present. We have subject and predicate, and we have conjunction if or whether introduced. If or whether introduced. So, these are the changes. These are the changes that should be undertaken when we report questions. The only thing to remember is that you should apply direct word order. Прямий порядок слів. So, for statements we use only lexical and grammar changes, and for questions we use lexical grammar and word order changes. So these are the changes that you should remember, memorize. All they are quite clear and easy to understand. That is almost all, because there is one thing which is left. So we've discussed statements and we've discussed questions. There is one more type of sentence which also can be reported. What is that? It's an imperative sentence. Imperative sentence – спонукальне речення або наказовий спосіб. Of course, during the conversation we can give some instructions, we can ask somebody to do something or tell and whatever. And we use this imperative mood or imperative sentences. How do we form it in direct speech? We form it with the help of the bare infinitive. For example, call me in an hour, Tim said. Подзвони мені через годину. So, actually it's the imperative mood. We make it with the help of bare infinitive. Infinitive without particle to. Infinitive без часточки to, без будь-яких змін, без будь-яких закінчень. Виражає наказ або спонукання до якоїсь дії. Call me, подзвони мені. We use Tim said. The reporting verb is in the past, but it doesn't matter. So how do you report imperatives? We use Tim said, or we may use asked, it is more polite, or we may use ordered, which is more strict. Ordered, наказал, asked, попросил. So it depends on the degree of that imperative. Tim said to all meet in an hour. What changed? The only change is that we used particle to before infinitive. Єдина зміна, що відбулася, це таки повернулася часточка to до інфінітива. No other changes. Більше ніяких змін. We use to infinitive in the reported imperatives. If we have a prohibition, заборона. For example, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Не торкайся цього. So, it's also imperative. So, Tim said, він сказав, we use to touch it, but we have don't. So, the full particle not. Повністю часточка not вживається, but the same infinitive, full infinitive. Tim said not to touch it. It's the easiest way to report imperatives. So, all in all, we have already discussed everything which is connected with the reported speech. We know how to report statements, we know how to report questions, and now finally we found out how to report imperatives. The only thing is to keep in mind all those changes. And you should keep in mind that all those changes happen at the same time. That's the most typical mistake the students make. They remember about lexical changes but forget about grammar. They may remember about grammar changes but they tend to forget about lexical. So all these changes should be applied at once, at one single sentence. And that is all. That is easy as for reported speech. So I thank you for attention. I invite you to follow our channel, YouTube channel. I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and see you later. Take care.